I had never heard the Palestinian perspective until this past year, and it was mostly on social media. It was not a part of my education growing up at all. I went to a Jewish day school from kindergarten to fourth grade, and I went to Hebrew school through my bar mitzvah. These, traditional places where Zionism is instilled at a very young age to people. As you mentioned in the documentary, it's a part of every level of Jewish education. I always say, like, if I had gone to my rabbi in my Jewish day school and said, I don't believe in God, I don't know what I'm doing with that, they would have an answer for that. They would be able to handle that. They would be able to, work with me on that and, continue my education even with my doubts. If I had gone to my rabbi and said, I don't think what Israel is doing is right, my parents would have been called in. It would have been a huge crisis. It was a very left-wing community, but this was a major exception. And it was not uncommon to hear any criticism of Israel being called anti-Semitic. I was taught at an extremely young age about the horrors of the Holocaust. That was never a question in my Jewish upbringing, was just how horrible that was and how much its legacy affects that. But it wasn't really until this past year, which is embarrassing, that I heard the Palestinian perspective. I had not seen hospitals be blown up. I had not seen newborn babies be bombed. Like, those are the kind of things that were shocking to me. And it wasn't until I learned independently and took the active effort to unlearn, which is not a common necessarily Jewish experience. It takes an active effort to learn how this has sort of always been a part of Israeli history. This kind of brutality has been a part of Israel's history from its very founding. And that was new information to me. The idea that this history has always been horrific. It's recent history. There's multiple people who are still alive who experienced this history. It wasn't really until I saw perspectives of Palestinians and saw visual evidence of what was happening that it really hit home that I can't stand for this anymore. I can't let this go. This has to be something I address publicly. Like, if I went to school and I had someone who was Palestinian come in and tell their point of view, I would have a very different outlook on things at a much younger age, and having to force myself to unlearn a lot of things later on in my life. That's the only thing I see changing this from a Jewish perspective is education, awareness, and organization. The only way to really change this within the Jewish community is at a structural level. That's why getting in at the younger generation level and being able to at least begin to have this conversation is so crucial. Who knows what will happen in the next few years, but, in the long term, if we're going to have some justice for Palestinian people and some humanity and recognition of the existence of Palestinian people and their point of view, we're going to need to present this at every level of education that we possibly can.